It is Monday, rawmikerichards.com, and a busy Monday it will be. Doug Ford going to be live in studio at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So, obviously, if you're watching this later on or you've downloaded the podcast, I get that. We appreciate it. For a time to want to be in public office, to be in public service in this day and age, it takes guts. I don't know if I'd want to do it. How's that going for Donald Trump these days? What a mess on the weekend. And it's not getting any easier. But public service, how many people really? I mean, I get it's for the greater good, Dave, but man, oh man.
Yep.
I would never want to do it.
No,
there's reasons why guys like you and me can't. Usually has to do with the past that has stories that don't lend itself for people saying, I'd like to vote for him. No, usually it has stories that say, really? I used to like him. He seemed like a good guy.
You know what the thing is, too, is most of these guys, I'm not talking about Donald Trump here, by the way, because, yeah, most of these guys are probably okay and decent people, but there's so many grave diggers when it comes to election time and people that hire people to look for garbage. They'll find anything.
Well, Dave, it's all about context. And I'll give you an example. Probably one of the finest men I've ever known, and maybe the finest man, is my dad.
Yep.
My dad, Jim, has molded thousands through his teaching and his coaching. Guys who had trouble at home, guys who had trouble learning. Like it went, you know, a 30, 40-year career he had of this. Back in the, so, you know, it's like Hoosiers. He came to that small town in the 50s.
Yep.
And he took them in 1955. They used to have a Canadian championship for high school. A Canadian championship. He took from Stouffville, Ontario, sort of Mennonite farm boys, right? It was just like the movie. You know, he had to convince some of these farmers that it wasn't less, it didn't take away from their spirituality playing high school basketball. He had to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And trust me, my dad was a church organist. So, I mean, my dad is many things to many people. And so he said, you know, let them, you know, be inspired by what they can do. He took them to the Canadian National Championships in Montreal in 1955-56. And here's the irony. If you watch Hoosiers, which is one of my favorite movies.
Awesome movie.
When those kids go in there, from Indiana, little Indiana, and they take a look at that stadium and they look at that basketball net, they measure just to show that basket. My dad did the same thing in 1955 or whatever.
Really?
He watched. He said, "That's what I did," and it was not Gene Hackman.
No.
Like when you think about
Much better looking than
yeah,
Gene Hackman.
yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's actually most of his life he looked like a. But when I grew up, he was around me at Tony Randall.
Right.
And I was Oscar. I was like, "What are you doing in my room? Get out of my room, you!" But my dad was so well liked back. Like you have to understand, I'm going to high school with him, so it's late 70s and early 80s.
That's a tough shift, man.
Well,
Dad's in your high school?
But and people say, how do you do that? Well, he's a legend. And when I mean loved, I mean loved. So you had all these, you know, again, church choir leader, coach, English major, like he has it all. He can play every instrument that you name. He really can. The young girls would hang off him, just hang off him, hold his hand, be, you know, grabbing all of them. He was covered with because they just loved him. That was Mr. Real, and they loved him. In this day, me and my brother, who's still a teacher, goes, oh man, in this day and age, you would be crucified.
Yes.
Crucified.
Yes.
There would be pictures and camera videos of my father, probably as they're walking down the hallway. I still remember it. Girls hold like linked in arms, holding his hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Today,
yeah, that's like frowned upon. That's
disaster.
The worst thing in
there
the
was
world.
Obviously nothing going on. I mean, for a man like that, but you can find stuff on the most That's why it's almost. And Dennis Miller had a great line about this, in that the guy who could be the greatest leader in the world has so much stuff in his closet that he can never run. He might be the best guy you could ever have, but like normal people,
Yep.
Like, I don't think Russell has anything necessarily to be upsetting. Like Russell, I think you could run for.
I don't know. This weekend sounded kind of went off the
Yeah, the birthday weekend.
Yeah, it may have gone off the rail a little bit.
Who's not voting for the face though? Like everyone's like, oh,
That's true.
he's 8. You know what I mean? Like maybe he should be older. But can he reach all the things? If
Is that the platform?
yeah,
Maybe he should be older.
yeah, if he hires a cabinet, can he reach high enough to be on the cabinet? Like it would be, but maybe he has no stories. Like it's very difficult to run public office. So Doug Ford will join us today in a family that people have literally, because of Rob, they have been through their garbage. We use that as a euphemism, but people have actually gone through this family's garbage. You saw the drama and really the tragedy of the end of Rob Ford's life, in which his brother was with him side by side. And yet he still is saying that he would like to run for office, and he's going to talk to us about that today because I've never talked to Doug, and there's so many questions I'm sure that we have, including his reasoning. Why? I mean, do you think John Tory's done a good job? People can nitpick about John Tory, but there's nothing really, to me, polarizing about, like Trump, either you're a Tory guy or you're not. No one has that conversation. So what does Doug see that could be better for the city of Toronto? It's the only reason he do this. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need any more notoriety. He doesn't need more cameras in his backyard, but he's doing it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So why, Dave? That's what I'm curious about.
Well, you know what? That's probably the number one question right off the top, right? Because it's funny though. I personally think he has it in his blood because you look at Doug Sr., who has passed on, Rob, who has passed on, both in office, Michael, who's a 22-year-old counselor in Ward 2. He's well into it too. He came from a school board to council. It's just the Ford name itself, and I think a lot of people love the idea, or at least love the idea of a Ford running because of the emphasis on cutting taxes. If you want to vote today, you cut taxes, and what we're seeing here in City Hall is a guy that has raised taxes year after year after year, and I don't know. I think that's maybe why this is the situation, but we'll find out shortly.
Oh, we will find out. On the weekend, where as we gave our picks, I think Victor was probably pretty excited because he was 5-0 going into Saturday.
That's very good.
And no NFL on it. There was 4 college, and I believe he ended up losing 2 of the 4, which is very unlike Victor.
Yep.
to not win all his college basketball, or college football rather. But if you got into the NFL and the NFL picks, to me they didn't even seem that hard. I don't think on the ones that I made. So I took -6 Philadelphia. I took -5.5 or 6 Miami.
Yep.
I would have taken Oakland.
Yep.
I think I did, maybe not publicly, but I know I took Oakland. Pittsburgh I took for sure.
Okay.
I took Pittsburgh.
I stayed away from that one.
And I'm trying to think the other one. It would have been, I don't think it would have been right anyway. Oh, it was Denver. And Denver.
Yeah. I had a 2-2 week. Would have been 3-1 if Detroit scores on that last drive.
Yeah, that was tough.
Because Indy got points, Giants got points. I was going to say San Diego. The Chargers, Los Angeles,
it's weird.
got rolled. That was the one loss where you went, okay, you lost. You lost like badly. But Detroit, I still think even play calling in that game, when they're threatening within the 10-yard line and Stafford is lined up in shotgun formation with nobody beside him, I'm like, oh, good God, run the ball. Just run it. Find somebody that runs a ball. I mean, I think that's all Detroit is missing right now. A trust in a running back that can get you 2 yards.
Bring Barry Sanders back. What is he now? Was he 60? It doesn't matter.
Good enough.
Yeah.
Better than what they have.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's a lot of that in the NFL. And look, we'd be kidding ourselves to say that the real story, like there were sensational games, some like truly sensational games, and sometimes for the wrong reasons.
Yep.
Green Bay, but still ended up being crazy. I knew that the Texans had something, but did it take yet another Tom Brady comeback? Which is, again, these are great stories in a league that had a lot of not great on the weekend, but that's not the story. Don't kid yourself that all of a sudden somehow
there's one story.
There is one story, and it's the kneeling. It's the anthem. It is the comments by their president calling them and some that would do that, a son of a bitch. Now, look, we're not very political on the show for some very obvious reasons. That's not what Dave and I are about. We privately never have political conversations.
No.
In fact, the conversations we have would be the opposite of political. I mean, I think politically incorrect would be the conversations we have. We're more interested in barbecue sauces
We are. And corn on the cob.
than we are about, I don't know, national security. This is just the nature of the show. It's not what we do. For Donald Trump, and again, this is another thing that we can talk to Doug Ford about. People at the time were sick of politicians. You could feel it south of the border. They couldn't stomach Hillary and the rhetoric that goes with it, and that whole, even the patter when they speak that we won't put up with it anymore. Okay,
Yeah.
You know what? Just sustaining that one note when you talk, that went out in the 60s or the 70s. Like we just don't want to hear. So they go with a successful businessman who tells a lot of Americans, we're going to make it great again. You knew what you were getting. You knew you were getting a politician. You were getting a guy who also is going to tweet. What president tweets, including stuff right off the cuff? I mean, right off the top of his head, he's just going to fire from the hip. That's the opposite of what a politician does. A politician will pause and think about the most appropriate thing to say at that moment. That there's an edit button. There's the percentage of risk is then calculated, and therefore that's why all politicians basically have poly speak. It's that edit button. Well, he didn't have that when he started going, about firing these son of a bitches, where he looks at Golden State, and while they're pondering whether they want to come to the White House or not, he uninvites them. Mm-hmm. Now, for a lot of people, and I have to think it's got to be somewhat calculated, that the power base that he has with that 50%, if it is, could be lower now, that wanted to have a guy like this, they don't care about the rich athlete. They don't care the fact that they're hemming and hawing, or as he would put it, kneeling down during the anthem. It is such a mess in that, Dave, when you have, as they would call it, inalienable rights. So the right, freedom of speech, the right to protest, all those things. It kind of means, in a real literal sense, maybe we'll talk to some of our lawyer friends too, that you're not wrong then. So if you want to kneel, not wrong. If you want to burn the flag, not wrong. Yeah. So if I say, I think it's wrong and I believe Trump and I would fire any guy who kneels, well, that guy can't be wrong either. So there's no wrong in it, because I think morally and ethically, that's where people generally get base their opinions on. There is a level of ethics to what they're doing. But if that doesn't matter in conversation, then who's right?
Exactly, because you have two completely opposite groups and they're both right. Do you know what I mean? That's what it is.
That's what it is. You have created, with these freedoms, the ability for anyone almost to do whatever they want, and it's backed up. So a big part of the conversation south of the border, Dave, is the military.
Yes.
So the military. Now, there was a time, I don't think the players actually came up for the anthems. I want to say like 2008, 2009. It was kind of later on, and then it got tied into the respect of the military. The military, by the way, puts in, I think, on a yearly basis, a little over $5 million. So when they have the uniformed guys there, when they have the flyovers, that kind of stuff, they have actually paid the NFL to be a part of that. So people sometimes see that isn't necessarily as above board, that it's some sort of show. But I feel, the most honest opinion that I could possibly have is that I feel sorry for our American friends south of the border, because I don't know what you're going to do to get out of this. You have a president who speaks for at least some percentage of your country, where he's getting a standing ovation after he says that.
Yeah.
But because of that, you have some people who have some strong opinions like LeBron James, who then turn around and call the president of the United States a bum. Now, of course, he's Jeff's laughing outside. I just heard that. It is their right to do whatever they want. But if everybody's right, then how do you tell they're wrong? And that's what my fear is for our American friends. And it's not so much the kneeling is as ironically the least part of what we're talking about and what they're talking about. Yeah. It's not about the kneeling anymore. That's that was started by Colin Kaepernick for some honest, real reasons that he had, that a true feeling of what is going on south of the border, that there is an injustice to it. But this weekend, and I got news for you too, by the way. When's Major League Baseball playoffs start?
Oh yeah.
You think that this show doesn't continue?
It does.
It does, Dave.
Yeah. And it's funny because we just heard within the last 24 hours that the Pittsburgh Penguins hockey organization has said yes to the president of the United States. They will be going to the White House, and then that leads to what happens to Sidney Crosby, because if he is, you know, in his management group, which I'm sure much smarter than us,
Yeah.
take the page out of the Tom Brady book and do not appear in the ISO picture of you and Donald Trump, because that will live forever.
Yes.
And that's the kind of situation where you have to be careful as an athlete, because you sitting there shaking his hand could affect financial, I guess, generosities of sponsors to come, because
It has that, but see, and this is what I would say to Donald Trump, who would be fascinating to me. Like I really would, because for the most part, he's done it his way and didn't give a shit about anybody. He didn't care in his business. He didn't care in his personal life. He is who he is, and apparently, slightly more than half of the country agreed with that person running your country. That's why you have these open elections, and it is an open election. So he's not going to be here in a couple of years through whatever it's going to be. They'll go back hardcore the other way, I imagine.
They will,
is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I would say to him, you know, even in business, that aren't you trying to get the majority of that pie? Aren't you trying to get the bigger segment of that consumer base to buy into what you're selling? In this case, it's the presidency. So if you create a separation or a wall of distrust with major sports leagues, do you realize how many people you're killing off here? Not just the athletes themselves, but there was, for instance, a lot of the guys who kneeled, and I heard someone on a satellite sports radio station talking to one of the hosts. He said, "Well, I was at the Colts Browns game."
Browns game, yep.
Said, and when they took the knee, the whole stadium booed. They were booing the guys who took the knee, which didn't surprise me. Again, it's this: you take these factions of people who generally are supposed to be, they're just there to watch a football game. The question should be, you know, is Cleveland that much better? Do they have a quarterback who can play against a team if there's no Andrew Luck? I mean, these are the conversations you should be having about Cleveland and Indy. And that's not the thing I talked about.
No.
I talked about the kneeling. I talked about, because it's not going to go away.
No.
And I just don't know. I don't know what the solve is, because it's not so much, again, with Colin Kaepernick, it was all about the kneeling. It's gone way beyond that now. And you have a president who referred to those people as son of a bitches, like you would as a talk show host. I mean, I could do it, but
Yeah.
I'm not the president.
No, you don't hold world power. Well, yet.
Not yet.
That,
I wonder if I did. You want to see scary? Oh, man. I'll straighten this place out.
give me my phone. I got something to say.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. I just want to say that, and if, oh, forget. But you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about any of these games, and so what's going to happen on the Monday Nighter? Because this is built up, and the crescendo hasn't hit yet.
Nope.
And the real problem is, I don't know what the end is. Like, are you telling me that whoever wins the NFL this year, whoever it is,
will not be showing up in the White House.
So how could that even be a thing?
Yeah.
How can you even expect? They go, well, he might disinvite them. I go, but that's so small. The only way any of these things get solved is through discussion and debate. So you sit down at the same table to talk about some of these issues. How you don't solve it is not going. See, but again, there leaks a little bit of my philosophy, which is sit down, man to man, face to face. And if you have some legitimate disagreements, if you have the kind of power, for instance, how much power does a LeBron James have? Could LeBron James seek an audience if he wanted to? So this is pre-you're a bum. Could LeBron James possibly get a face-to-face with Donald Trump?
I'm going to say yes.
Of course, yes, absolutely. It's 100% yes.
Yep.
So if you have some of these issues that you really want to solve, you would sit down. But I think we've lost that as a culture. We don't debate ideas. We don't sit there, and even if you have a different idea than mine, we don't get crosstalk. We don't have conversation to find some middle ground. You go to Twitter,
Yep.
and I say what that day, all of a sudden someone's Hitler, someone's racist, someone's homophobic, someone's like whatever those things are that you disagree with. Both sides end up absolutely having this disdain and almost hatred for each other.
In a society, though, aren't we kind of, and I hate to say this, but aren't we kind of turning antisocial in general?
We've gone backwards.
We have.
We've gone backwards.
Because nobody does the face-to-face. Nobody does even the phone calling. Like, how many people use their phone to phone call?
People are disappointed when the phone rings.
It is.
Unless it's you.
Yes.
Unless I see your name on it.
I don't answer it. I don't.
There's very few people. Even sometimes, Linda. What have I forgot? Yeah. But I'm saying you might have a circle of 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And then after that.
That's it.
Yeah.
Seriously. And it's
Hey,
like,
Russell Graham.
Ignore.
Is that upsetting for you, roast beef, to hear that? No, if it's you, trust me. You're the ones I pick up. I pick up yours.
Because I get the sense that he wouldn't be phoning me up saying, Nazem Kadri's really the third-line center, not the second-line center? Would you quit bugging me?
Okay, so let's think in hockey. So in hockey,
Yeah.
what is that response going to be if they're an American team?
Great question.
Because you're not telling me they're going to kneel on the ice.
Yeah.
And look, hockey players, and I think still 50% plus are still Canadian.
Yes.
Then you have a lot of Europeans.
It's a different.
And a substantial number of Americans. It's not like U.S. players aren't prevalent. Of course they are. But what are they going to do?
The other aspect,
and they'll be white
because,
too.
Yes, that's what I was just going to say. Race also plays a factor because when you look at how many African American football players there are compared to African American hockey players there are, there's a significant difference. And and I'd even go as far as saying Major League Baseball as well, because they do not. There's an American side of it, but it's almost a white American sport.
Well, I would say 50% probably. If it's not 50%, are Latino.
Yeah, and
are a big part of it.
Exactly.
So if they kneel, you're like, okay, well, so they're saying then there's an inequality with. Again, if we're talking, is it a police issue? Like, it's so layered.
That's part of it.
And I think so. Will Strickland sent me
Yes.
something last night, and I said, okay, Will, if you're around, because he was speaking actually at the, I think it was the Big Ten, all the universities going around speaking. He's a really interesting guy. I have a lot of time for Will Strickland, and he works like in the hip hop world. He works a lot, obviously, in the basketball world. He was born in New York, schooled in Houston. He's living here now. But if you're going to talk to, a black U.S. citizen who played sports in some of the two, like, he's got a real opinion.
Bingo.
So I think he's going to come I hope he comes in tomorrow, because we're just speculating and guessing as, for me, a middle-aged white guy. I'm just pontificating on what I think some of those difficulties and the problems you'd have with ethics and morality. But I'm just lobbing these in from the cheap seats to a degree. And that's what I always feel. Don't get too upset when people maybe don't quite nail it, especially here in Canada. Because the tendency, I think, in radio and mainstream media in Canada is just to completely – it's safer to go to the left side. Mm-hmm. It's safer to be anti-Trump. It's safer to be anti-right-wing only because it seems like it's easier embraced. I just think if you're just a little honest, but look, is CTV News going to come on and they got to play in the middle? There's just, I think, a lot of people here that just want to make sure that they're on the safe side, and the safe side is not the Trump side. And to a degree, I get that. But I think you should just be honest and say, well, if you don't, that's what I said at the very beginning, I was sick of the hate. Hate, to me, it just spiritually burns up everything, and there's nothing left. Sit down at the table, negotiate your ideas, if you want to put it that way, and let's try to make this thing better. If you want to make America great, that's where I would start. But now, Dave, you also have issues of, but does the president really need to be making comments about NFL players with that whack job in North Korea doing what he's doing, with health care issues? There's a lot of things in the States that need to be talked about. NFL players ain't one of them.
Right.
Or whether to invite or not invite the Golden State Warriors to the grounds. To a point, if he never talked about that, look how much better off it would have been.
Yep.
But he couldn't stay away from it.
Couldn't stay away, exactly.
So
addicted.
When Doug Ford comes in, look, he's not going to have an opinion. He played football. He former guy and he loves sports. I mean, he's a guy's guy. So we'll talk about some of those things when he comes in, but we're looking forward to that. And appreciate you watching here, rawmikeRichards.com, not only on the website, but of course, if you have subscribed to the dedicated YouTube channel, we appreciate that because that's how you don't miss a thing, as Aerosmith said.
That's Steven Tyler said that, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I don't want to miss a thing.
Oh, yes, you did.
Yeah, he
Okay,
did. Oh,
we
yeah.
can confirm that, yeah.
Do you think you could sing that song, Russell? Do you think? Do you know that song?
I think he does.
I know the song, yeah.
Okay.
What's your favorite song you can sing
let's
right now?
sing
What's a favorite
Yeah.
song you get? What song do you like?
What's the karaoke song that you go for?
What's in your? Well, what could you sing right now? It's probably a rap song or something. Is it like a hip hop? Because I know you like that.
A lot of rap. Yeah.
Okay, just give me a couple lines from a song and let me see if I can guess the artist.
Yeah, go.
I'll guess the artist. Any lines you know, and I'll guess
this
the
is
artist.
fun.
All right.
Here we go.
One of my favorite lines in rap is, "She couldn't afford a car, so she named her daughter Alexis."
Okay, but that was terrible what you just
Yeah,
did.
that wasn't a
It-
song
it's-
that you gotta
That's
sing it.
if Kenny Chesney did that song.
Yeah.
Okay, who did that song?
Kanye West.
I was going to say Kanye. Yeah, that was my. Yeah, but he didn't say it like that. So say it like
he did
him.
not.
Okay, let's hear the Kanye.
I don't think I can do a great Kanye imitation.
Okay, so this has gone well.
Yeah.
This is once again
Jessica
this is,
warming up in the bullpen.
yeah, Jess could do it, too. I know she could.
She could do some Bruce Springsteen for us. Maybe older Bruce Springsteen, not recent Bruce Springsteen.
like
but,
the E Street Band
yeah,
period of time. Yeah.
absolutely.
He's got his own station now on the satellite. E
He
Street.
does, eh?
E Street. Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder how he got that. Oh, I know. 9 million songs that are popular. That's how he did it. Also looking on the weekend, some games. I said the Jets should be losing. If you're a Jets fan, you're going, what are you doing?
Thoroughly disappointed.
It'd be like the Leafs when they were tanking. If they even got close to winning, people are
Yep.
like, what are you doing?
Yep. That's exactly it.
They like their coach. They play for their coach.
You can like your coach next year when you have a quarterback, too. That's what I'm saying. But you know what? The Dolphins really laid an egg, though. I mean, the Jets, okay, they hit that big bomb to Robbie Anderson. I think it was 70-something yards or whatever it worked out to. But it's like, oh, man, blown coverages and mistakes. And all of a sudden, the Dolphins don't show up. No running game at all. I was shocked. The only part of that I was actually happy about was a lot of people got eliminated for picking the Dolphins on
Yes, they
Survivor.
did.
So that's great. So see ya. Just like the Steelers who stayed in the locker room for the national anthem and proceeded to stay off the field for most of the game because the Bears actually handled them quite well. And it was close the whole game. Bears had a lead.
Yeah, that was no fluke, by the way. That's
No,
not a fluke.
The Bears ran the ball down their throats. And I know the Steelers aren't that good on the road, but you're
Come on.
playing the Bears.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, that was
wa-
one of the fails of the weekend.
That wasn't Walter Payton that you
Nope.
were playing against.
Exactly.
Other teams that came through in the clutch, you have to put the Eagles in that category. A 61-yard field goal gets it done, 27-24 over the Giants, who are now 0-3. And if I'm 0-3, I have to admit, if I score a touchdown finally for that pathetic team, the last thing I'm thinking of is some clever way to celebrate a touchdown, like being a dog urinating on a flagstick. What? Odell Beckham, this is why people look at you and go, I don't like the guy.
And he's such a great athlete.
Yeah.
too.
Oh, no, he's a freak athlete.
Like the catch he made, the one-handed catch in the end zone was awesome.
No one's
but,
discounting that.
But what a loser.
But you're telling me your team is 0-3, all kinds of problems, but you have to show what? What did that mean? What was the point of that?
No idea.
And that's the kind of stuff that people, if you want to call someone a name, that'd be the way to do it. Also, Drew Brees and the Saints. I'm telling you, the Panthers right now, and we've said this for a couple of weeks, what is going on there?
Yep.
Like I know Christian McCaffrey had a lot of touches, a lot of.
Yeah.
I mean, if
Good
you're
receiving game for
in
him.
the fantasy world, he probably was money.
Ooh, he
Yeah.
was money.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. Absolutely, he was. And Drew Brees played well too, tossing a pile of touchdowns. They actually got points. Saints were 5-point dogs.
Yeah.
So not only did they get the outright win, but you got points, which is even better.
Oh, the Seahawks lost.
Oh, rats!
And cover for the Titans. Look, it was a little bit of a scary of a fourth quarter, but I think overall it was the majority of the game was the Titan game.
Yep.
I mean, they did, and through the third quarter, they were the dominant team. It maybe is a little flattering to see that it was a 6-point win.
I'm surprised Seattle's offense actually showed up
Yeah.
because God knows they haven't the last 2 weeks.
No. Well, someone else's offense showed up and almost it would have screwed a lot of people in their survivor picks as well. But the way it started for the Bengals, I know a lot of people were sweating out there.
Ooh-wee.
The Packers get it done in OT, 27-24. And that was like some of these teams that pushed the other teams, they were full marks for it. The Bengals had as much right to win that game as Green Bay, but they found a way, Dave, 27-24 in OT.
Overtime, field goal, and yeah, Aaron Rodgers, another game-tying drive where you sat there and you went, wow, they're really struggling with the Bengals. And when I look at that, and I look at Minnesota winning, I look at Detroit almost winning, and you know, a lot of people thought that should have been a win for Detroit the way they've played so far this season. That division isn't the Packers and only the Packers. There's 3 teams legitimately that could win that division. That's how close that is.
The Chiefs 24-10 over the Chargers. A lot of people like the Chargers in the weekend.
Yeah, I know. I had points in the
Was
Chargers.
that plus 3.5, I think?
Plus 3.5. It
Yeah.
was over that field goal mark, and I thought, okay, maybe there's a legitimate chance considering that the Chargers lost 2 games because of their field goal kicker. And sometimes you think Kansas City, long travel to the West Coast, different time zone. Sometimes it affects teams differently, and sometimes, you know, within the division
Could be tight.
could be tight. Home team gets the points. Maybe there's some value there. Clearly no value there
No.
because right now the Chiefs might be the best team in the NFL.
Well, they're 3-0, 2-0, including on the road, which is pretty good. And as I said, I think you got an Alex Smith. This could be his last year as the starter, and then
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes sitting behind him. But he's going out. He's going out like a winner. And right now, he's playing like a winner. And for Andy Reid, you know, you take a look at that game planning, and right now he's got them playing. Well, and let's talk about fantasy. Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt is amazing.
Russell, did you say you were going up against someone who had Kareem Hunt
Yeah, in week 1.
in week 1?
Yeah.
Well, any week now, if you've got Kareem Hunt, he is just lights out right now. Those are the kinds of stories that I love. And like I said, maybe a lot of people aren't talking about Kareem Hunt today, which would be a shame because he really is a great story. More people are going to be talking about, you know, but did he kneel? Did he kneel during the end? I mean, all of a sudden, something else beyond football that we're talking about, which just drives me nuts. But look, that's where it is.
172 yards rushing on 17 carries.
That's crazy
That's
numbers.
outrageous. 69 yards was the long one for him that added to it. But even when you look at that, the long distance run out of the equation, he still had a 100-yard game, which is just massive. This guy right now may have the Rookie of the Year locked up, the trophy locked up already, and we're sitting here finishing up week 3 tonight.
Other, I don't know if you want to call them epic failures, but holy crap, Oakland. What happened there?
That is an epic fail.
That's just a no-show.
Yeah.
He got sacked a bunch of times, threw a couple of picks. I mean, that's offensive line issues generally. Of course, I was so mad at that point. I was more interested
Yeah.
in the ribs I was cooking. I
Yeah.
did ribs last night. Excellent ribs.
I'm doing it tonight,
Oh, yeah.
actually. Yeah, I got ribs and chicken happening tonight, so I'm really excited about that.
See what I'm saying about our conversations? This is how we talk. This is what we talk about.
Derek Carr threw 118 yards in that game. When Derek Carr's on his game, that's what he should throw in the first quarter.
Oh, at least, yeah, that was shocking.
It was. And considering that a lot of people thought, okay, Raiders, prime time. This is a team that we're going to be watching for the next couple of years because they got a young quarterback. They got some receivers that are relatively young. They got Marshawn Lynch coming back, which is a nice story, returning to the Bay Area and everything good like that before they make the move to Las Vegas in a couple of years. And they throw up that lemon on Sunday Night Football.
I agree.
That was terrible.
Speaking of games thrown away, now, look, the Bills defensively were all over the Broncos the whole game. So that's not a fluke.
No.
I mean, the Bills defense, like usual,
Yes.
is for real. They're a better than good probably defensive team. But the Broncos, I mean, and Simeon he just made a lot of bad decisions. You know, that's probably what you thought was going to happen maybe week 1 or 2. And then the Von Miller penalty was so odd in that, and if you didn't see it, I was thinking they threw a flag, which would have been a terrible flag on Von Miller after he hits Tyrod Taylor after he throws it. And it was not a high hit. It wasn't a late hit. It was a clean hit. So as Tyrod's on the ground, Von Miller reaches out to give him a hand. And when Tyrod goes to grab it, Miller pulls it away. Psych. Well, this is in the fourth quarter. A referee's watching it. Taylor's laughed,
Yes.
and he
Yes.
got flagged for unsportsmanlike. That was 15 yards and a first down. It literally cost them a game. But come on, officials, seriously?
Yeah.
You can't see that two guys are just athletes going at each other. They're both kind of laughing, and then they throw the flag.
That was brutal. That was a referee not understanding the time of game it was, what actually happened, maybe not paying attention to the whole sequence, and not seeing reactions on the players' faces. That was just not getting it at all.
That's misreading a situation so bad, and you're paid to actually have that kind of judgment. I mean that's part of the paycheck, Dave.
It is.
Understanding flow of the game, understanding the athletes, all that kind of stuff. Man, I got to tell you, that was maybe the weirdest thing. Our good friend Kevin Gibson. So Gibby was at the stadium.
Yeah.
So I'm texting him.
He was doing research from the stadium?
Sure,
Because he does find research.
he usually does it in the kitchen or the toilet.
Okay.
And I'm like, "What's your team doing?" It wouldn't have mattered because the last game on my on the backup parlay that you start chasing stuff.
Sure you do.
Oakland,
Oakland.
and it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. So I bet you there was a lot of people eliminated, Dave. A lot of people.
Whew. Yeah, heading to week 4. You want to take a look at those early lines?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. That's the beauty of the gambler. It's like, oh, I can't believe it. The weekend I was terrible. I blah blah blah. What are the lines next week? What are the lines? Give me the lines.
I'm curious about this Thursday nighter because we're looking at a similar number that we saw with the
Oh, by
Bengals.
the way, once again, the game in London was unbelievable.
Oh, was it ever?
It was terrific.
Exciting.
Fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Joe Flacco, for not showing up. He knelt the entire game.
Was that where they had 90,000 at that place?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Like, it's crazy.
It's like they legitimately love NFL football, which is great. That's nice.
A lot of expats there. Haven't seen
Yeah.
a football game in a long time.
There's going to be another one this weekend too, Miami and New Orleans.
Well, right now, look, I don't know if philosophy goes out the window, but I'm going, yeah, New Orleans for sure. And all of a sudden, Miami. Like, I'm telling you, there are a lot of angry people this weekend. I guarantee you that.
Yeah. So the Thursday nighter, we have Green Bay home to Chicago, division rival. Green Bay 7.5-point favorites, the same number that closed before kickoff, where the Bengals basically own the Packers for 75% of the game.
That's correct.
So, I mean, I'm not overly confident in this Green Bay offensive line. We talk about some of the bigger teams: Giants, Packers, Seahawks, Raiders. Offensive
line issues. Yeah.
Offensive line.
Yeah.
Are those teams going to make the jump where they should? Are those teams capable of winning a couple playoff games? Yes, they are. Do they have an offensive line? No, they don't.
Yeah, and it's hard to find. It's not like finding a running back.
No.
You can find a running back. You might even be able to find a receiver.
Yeah.
Maybe not a number one, but you can find a receiver. Try finding an offensive line.
Oh.
It's why they get paid so much.
Exactly. And they're seeing the value right now, because if we're fast forwarding to the draft, we talk about the quarterback draft. Guess what the next position that will be taken? Offensive line.
And there's a reason for it.
That London game, 9:30 kickoff. The Saints are 2.5-point favorites. Miami is considered the home team. It's in London. There's no home team, but Saints 2.5 points.
Miami's has traveled before.
They have traveled before.
What about New Orleans?
I'm trying to think,
because the Ravens hadn't. And now I don't know if that just because the Jags haven't. I don't know if you read too much into it, but it sure looked like it. Yeah. It kind of did look like it.
Now, this is an interesting test for the Bills. The Bills' defense, and we know how good it's been through 3 weeks. Very good. Probably maybe top 5, top 7, somewhere in that range. They get the ultimate test. They are going to Atlanta. Atlanta 8-point favorites in this one.
Well, again, the numbers right now, and generally, as I said, I'll find if you're looking for that number, but after this past weekend.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
I don't know what line you try. Even look, in college football, normally I just run the board on that.
Yeah.
I got smoked. So did some teams that Oklahoma State had all these aspirations. They got handled by TCU from beginning to end. They almost come back and win, but that didn't stop TCU from being the way better team. Florida State lost to North Carolina State.
Yeah.
They're out of the top 25. It was a tough weekend.
It was. This is one of my favorite matchups probably for the last 5 to 7 years. Another Pittsburgh-Baltimore matchup. This time it's in Baltimore. I'm expecting a bounce back from the Ravens. Odds makers right now have the Steelers 2.5-point favorites. Not a surprise that it's under the number of
I was going to
3.
say, so what is the total? What's the total?
Total for this one is 45, believe it or
it's
not.
under.
Yeah.
That might be the first number that I would take.
Yeah.
Because these teams are not scoring.
Cincinnati, another division rival. Speaking of that division, Cincinnati 3-point favorites in Cleveland against the Cleveland team that decided to show up in the second half, but got a lot of points against Indy in garbage time. It wasn't as close as it looked.
I might be liking that Bengals number because they weren't. Look, they got a lot of talent on that team. They're not going to be bad forever.
They do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that 3-point, that's one of those lines. Get on it early because I don't think it's staying at 3.
Rams travel to Dallas. The Rams have extended time off because of the Thursday nighter. Dallas is playing tonight. Dallas 8.5-point favorites right now at home.
A lot of points.
I know.
And again, the defense looks so
Rams.
good. The D looks so good in the first game, but you played an awful Giants team.
That's right.
So you really weren't quite sure. Then they got lit up by the Broncos, and the Broncos just got stampeded by the Buffalo Bills.
Bingo.
So good luck trying to follow the trend. Because I usually say by week number 3, you can see exactly what the reality of the league is.
Yeah.
And now I'm really confused.
Yeah.
Now I don't know who's doing what.
Throw mud into more mud.
Yes.
Yeah. Tennessee 1-point favorites in Houston. Good divisional matchup there. That's going to be tight.
Well, as I said, that's what you do when you don't win on the weekend. Here it is before 11 o'clock in the morning on Monday, and already Dave and I are talking about lines.
This is what we do. Detroit, Minnesota off the board because we don't know about Sam Bradford. Minnesota looked pretty damn good without Sam Bradford, and they are home to the Lions. No line right now.
You're watching RonMikeRichards.com. You're also downloading on iTunes, Google Play, maybe TuneIn. We're hoping at some point that we're going to get a chance to talk to Doug Ford, who has declared himself to be in the mayoral race, and the Ford name will continue on. It's been part of their family, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to him this morning. Looking at Major League Baseball, though, which is sort of interesting, the Diamondbacks, they are going to be hosting because of a huge win yesterday in Florida. So it secured home field advantage for a wild card game in Arizona. And I would think there'd be teams like the Dodgers going, shit, because they saw enough of that team. And I got to be honest, I'm not. I mean, baseball in postseason, and I've said it time and time again, it's the best. The baseball is the craziest in the latter stages of September and October. And I think you can get a lot of this. And I think there'll be a lot of teams not thrilled, Dave, that Arizona got themselves home field advantage in a wild card, because I don't know how far they can run. And if I'm going to look at a team that can run the table, it just might be them.
It might be them, exactly, because they got the right pitchers lined up. They have that starting rotation, which is maybe one of the best in the National League, and that's kind of what you need in that situation. Ironically, it appears that they'll be facing off against a division rival, which is kind of tough schedule for either one of them, but it shows you how powerful that National League is and how strong it looks like it's going to be. So right now, if we're looking at it, Colorado is holding off the Milwaukee Brewers right now. They have a 2-point lead, 2-game lead on them. So Arizona, yes, will be hosting either Colorado or Milwaukee more than likely. I'm guessing it's going to be the Rockies, and that game screams over considering some of the bats and that, but you got to be careful with that Diamondbacks rotation. Or, as you would say, the Snakes.
Yeah, the Desert Snakes.
The Desert Snakes.
Oh, come on. Bryce Harper looks like he's going to come off the disabled list, return for the Washington Nationals. It doesn't matter about this 3-game series with the Phillies. What matters is how significant he can be at this time of year, because, Dave, they really do need him. And if there's a guy it's like picking up that exceptional player at trade deadline right before your playoffs. This kind of could have that same effect, except they already have him. Bryce Harper, by the way, when you start looking at the monies, if he comes through in postseason, how much money are the Yankees? Are they the front runners? Who's the front runner, do you think?
That's tough.
Because it's going to be, I don't know how many zeros are going to be on that thing. But.
Because you look at it from a Yankees point of view, and I know the Yankees have done some crazy things in the past, especially with that A-Rod deal of many years ago, and they have a great roster. Do you sit there and you commit that much money to one player, or do you kind of say, no, I'm not going to take a $30 million guy. I'm going to take a $27 million guy in Manny Machado, and put him at third base and steal him away from a division rival in Baltimore. I don't know. It makes a lot of people seem to think that the Yankees are the team that's going to go out and pay for it, but I'm just not convinced of it right now.
The only thing that I would say about it is that Bryce Harper is never going to change the way that he plays.
Right.
So he had a bone bruise in his left knee because he was running out a grounder. Right. So it was he slipped on a wet base. Like there was a lot of weirdness around it.
Yep.
But that wouldn't have stopped him from playing the way that he plays.
No.
If you're going to put out hundreds of millions of dollars, then what you're doing is you're sort of rolling the dice that somehow in the manner in which he plays is not going to sideline him for a period of time, which makes the contract sort of useless. Manny Machado might be he might be the call on that because there's not going to be nothing left in Baltimore. But if you take him away, they're last place.
They are last place.
They're last place.
That's the team that surplants the Toronto Blue Jays and where they are. And Baltimore is not a free spending team. Baltimore's not the kind of team that'll go, oh, we got to replace them with another bat similar to it. They won't.
Sometimes their general managers don't even care.
No. And seldom watches the team.
Yeah, it's like, did we play tonight? Wow.
I just sent off a message to Doug Ford and his PR team, so I'm hoping to hopefully get back an answer. But I'm kind of surprised by this. I have not received any information so far from them.
Well, it is downtown Toronto, and downtown Toronto
is true.
Is not fun on any minute by minute basis. Like a road could just be closed, and then you're hooped.
Yeah,
but he's running for mayor, so
open it up,
fix it. Who wants to be anything in public service? I'm telling you, Dave. I look at this stuff and no, thank you. Oh, by the way, here is kind of a funny tweet here.
Yes, sir.
It was from Bill Hoffmeyer, ESPN. He said, "Tonight is the first Cowboys-Cardinals Monday Night Football game in Arizona since Jerry Maguire in 1996. It was a big night for Rod Tidwell."
That's funny. Good reference.
That was awesome. Did you like that movie?
I liked the movie until I actually saw the guy who played Rod Bidwell. I'm forgetting his name.
Oh, Cuba Gooding Jr.
Cuba Gooding.
Yeah.
Like how small he was. Yeah.
So you were thinking of the reality of life.
Yeah.
And,
well, yeah, because just
like
like okay, do yourselves a favor and watch the OJ 8-part series, but just watch it and don't think of who's playing OJ, because if you watched OJ, and I'm not saying we sat there watched OJ as kids because OJ's a lot older than us, but if you know of the legend of OJ Simpson, the football player, not the dick in life, he's not 5'3". And he doesn't look like a sissy. Do you know what I mean? Like it's also that kind of bugged me because every other character was great.
Yeah,
Johnny Cochran was perfect.
Johnny Cochran was Johnny Cochran.
Yes, it was an awesome series, but Cuba Gooding Jr. has OJ Simpson.
Well, even the voice, because Cuba's got a really distinct voice.
Yes.
But so does OJ. OJ's voice was very smooth. It was very deep.
That's right, Mike Luck.
Yeah, that's right. Where this was, I don't know. I don't understand the casting because Cuba's so well known and had been so many big movies.
Yeah.
That you're seeing. You never saw the other people you actually were looking at. Although Eric Macramella, our friend from TSN, legal analyst, did not like John Travolta as
Robert Shapiro.
Robert Shapiro.
Yeah.
He just didn't like it just because.
Well, John Travolta has a tendency of overacting everything.
Well, Dave, I would quite frankly disagree with what you're saying. And as I was studying the part of, what was it, Don Shapiro?
No, Robert.
Right, Robert. A lot of his friends called him Don. A lot of people don't know that. And so I was saying that I would be sort of lawyer-like. Just look at how I'm talking now. The difference between, okay, here's what I'll do.
Okay.
I'm going to talk like myself, normal, like normal,
Okay.
and then I suppose I'll talk like Robert Shapiro.
Okay, fire away.
So here's me at a restaurant.
Okay.
Excuse me, miss. I would totally love a cheese sandwich on white with some pickles on the side.
Okay. And now Robert Shapiro ordering the same thing.
Excuse me, miss. Perhaps I would like some grilled cheese on white with a few pickles on the side.
Okay, I can
So
see the
as you
difference.
can tell
I can, yes.
Yeah. What's the matter, Mr. Cotter? Like that. That's so childish. Okay. I really don't want to talk about that.
Before you go, John, I have
Yes.
one final question. Are you returning for That's So Hockey? Because the NHL season's 9 days away, and it may have been TSN's best show.
It certainly was. I'll be working with The guy who talks funny.
Okay. Darren Detition.
Yeah, what are you talking about that talks funny? Because I've seen you in a lot of, including Grease, which was just horrible. It was
Let me just stop you right there, Lips. That you don't know what good acting is. Okay, we're gonna. Okay. We're this will go on forever as we're killing time.
That is true.
For Doug Ford to come in, it's like, what do you think, Pee Wee Herman?
well,
If you ask me, I think that everyone should kneel. All right, all righty. Also, what was I going to throw in here?
Jose
this
Bautista.
morning? Oh,
Let's go to
that's
the
what it was.
Bautista
I knew it was
stuff, yes.
baseball. Okay, so everyone's very upset. A lot of tears.
Yes.
It was his final farewell as he gives the tip of the cap as he goes to the dugout.
Yep.
An interesting legacy, but I think overall, people are going to say that during that time, he probably was, if not the most popular, pretty close to the most popular athlete in this city, that being Toronto.
Yeah.
And that's hard to say at times. I mean, guys flirt with being the most popular. I mean, they even said Brett Laurie was at one point. But the reality is, of popular athletes for an extended period of time,
Correct.
Jose Bautista may have owned that.
Yeah, let's show the video now. Russell has it, and we'll show the video courtesy of Major League Baseball.
And Major League Baseball Advanced Media.
And when we come back on the other side, I'll give you my top 5 all-time Blue Jays, and we'll find out whether or not Jose Bautista is in it.
John Gibbons has dispatched Ezekiel Carrera.
And there's the ovation. Strange to know that in this moment, going through his head, even though it's not official, that everyone's like, well, you're not coming back. Like, would it be weird if he goes, why is everyone acting like this? I'm clearly coming back next year. You know, look at that scene, all the players. You can't say that he didn't give it up. Doesn't mean you're the best at everything, but it just meant of significance. I think his time here, there's been no one more popular. I mean, you can throw in other names in that time. You know, I think Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. Obviously, the young Leafs now, probably, but they will go on the run post
Yes.
Jose Bautista.
Yeah. Bautista was around for that Matt Sundin Leaf era kind of thing, where he was the big cat in town.
So pretty significant. And there it is, once again, courtesy of Major League Baseball and Major League Baseball Advanced Media. So we just said how significant he's been in his time here, but if we're taking a look at the entire list, according to Dave Bastel.
And it's 40 years for them, too. So they actually had an anniversary on it. They had Jose somewhere on their list, and I kind of altered that list and made it my own. And here we go. So this is the top 5.
Top 5.
So
Starting with 5?
No, we're going to start with 1 because once we get a little bit closer, we might be talking about the player we just talked
Okay.
about. So number 1, I have Roberto Alomar as the greatest Blue Jay of all time. I just, Hall of Famer. I just think he's maybe the best second baseman we've seen in 50 years and surely in 40 years with the Blue Jays. At number 2, I have Roy Halladay. I think he's
huge. Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree
I
with
think
that.
Roy Halladay's the greatest pitcher the Jays have ever put into a Jays uniform. At number 3, and no disrespect either, but Dave Stieb. I think Dave Stieb is the second best pitcher all time with the Toronto Blue Jays. And here's where things get a little bit sticky. And I have Carlos Delgado ahead right now, just because I think he was around here longer. Most of his prime was here. And I think Delgado as a Blue Jay was more significant than Jose Bautista, because Bautista for me comes in at number 5. He was sent here in a trade that I'll always remember, because I was actually on staff with Sportsnet Television at the time covering a Jays game, and it came down the wire around 3:30, 4 o'clock that the Jays have acquired this utility third baseman / outfielder from the Pittsburgh Pirates. And his name was Jose Bautista. Now, we heard of the name, but he was a role player.
Yep.
And the Jays gave up Robinson Diaz, which was a catching prospect in the minors, where a lot of people thought this guy has the potential of being a starting catcher with the Blue Jays because he had a rocket arm and a pretty decent bat. So they gave up something decent, and it was J.P. Ricciardi at the time, gave up something decent to bring in this utility guy that could play at different spots. Sure enough, Bautista blossoms into one of the greatest outfielders, greatest Blue Jay of all time. It was the steal of the franchise's history, in my opinion, when it comes to trades made and what you give up. Diaz ends up not playing in the major leagues. He's now retired. Jose Bautista will be part of the Wall of Excellence. And in my opinion, negotiating between 4 and 5 as the all-time greatest Blue Jays, in my opinion. Sportsnet had him at 6, and I just think that the contributions, and I'm not just talking about the bat flip, but I'm talking about the 50 home run seasons, what he meant to this team, and how he actually became a major league player playing in this city for just under a decade. Tremendous. He was actually a pretty good supporter of the city as well. He had that sort of Toronto flag mentality about him, which was great. And a part of me actually kind of wants him around next year. I don't think the Jays could afford anything that he thinks he might be worth. But if the Jays get him as a fourth outfielder at $3 or $4 million, I think it's probably money well spent. But a part of me also says, then you can't kind of generate into the next generation, because clearly the Bautista era is over in Toronto.
Well, you mentioned some pretty spectacular players. I look at Roy Halladay, and the thing about it is to be that good at this level for that long, because you can be what people would call a phenom, and you can be like, I don't know, like Juan Guzman or something, and come out and you have like a year or two where no one can handle you, and then they do, and then they kind of figure it out. Maybe Ricky Romero, when you take a look at what, do you remember how we used to talk about him when he was having that season? It was like he was going to be another Roy Halladay. He was going to be another guy that was going to be around for a long time. And when the wheels came off, to this day, he might be one of the bigger collapses I've seen in terms of expectations and salary signed. Ricky Romero might be one of the biggest collapses I've ever witnessed.
That may have, exactly. Considering
painfully so,
he
too.
went from opening day starter to not being able to throw the ball across the plate.
In Buffalo.
Yes.
In Buffalo, he was getting knocked. Like, I don't know. And that's why I think anyone like Nolan Ryan. What was he, 75 when he retired?
Somewhere around there.
And beating the shit out of guys still?
Yeah.
Don't mess with Nolan Ryan.
Kick the crap out of Robin Ventura. Got a message from Doug Ford's people. He is apologizing for a reschedule. Something has come up, and he's actually in the process of coming over here right now, but he may not even be here for the next 15, 20 minutes. So I just told him, then we'll have to hold off.
Yeah, we'll reschedule. Not a problem.
We do apologize for promoting it, but these are things that happen sometimes when we're doing something live between time slots.
So we'll do that. I know we'll continue on. We'll see what happens in.
Doug's just outside right now.
You know what? Then he is right here.
And
guess what? Guess what? He's just coming in by himself too. Yes. That's the coolest thing. So I'll tell you what. As he just made his way in here, we're gonna play something from actually his home, his property, and this was him making that announcement about running for the mayoralty.
Yes,
you
know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, something like that. See that? Yet another reason why I wouldn't run. He has problems pronouncing words. So
yeah, don't vote for Richards.
Yeah. But like the family like to do. They hosted a big thing in their backyard. There was like a big tent that they had up like that, and he announced to the world that he was going to do it. And maybe for some, maybe it wasn't a surprise. Maybe for some, looking at the legacy that his family, as you mentioned earlier before, with his father, maybe that he felt that now this is sort of, he's been destined to do this. And one way or the other, I think it takes a lot of stones to actually do what he's going to do. So I know he just stepped in the downstairs in the back there for a while. But we will be talking to Doug Ford, who's now, again, a long-time established family, hugely established family in the west end of Toronto, and he has declared that he is going to run for mayor. So we look forward to talking to him after watching his announcement.
Again, after, as I was saying earlier, after consulting with my family and many of the folks in the crowd here, I know there's only one option. There's only one option here, folks. And I know where it is in my heart and where my heart is. And here today, I'm officially going to announce that I will be running for mayor. So much. Together, we will make sure that the average man and woman of this great city has a voice at City Hall.
Yes, yes.
Together, we will stop the out-of-control spending at City Hall and invest in priorities that matter to you.
Yes.
For 4 years, we have watched all the hard work that we did at City Hall. My friend Giorgio and Vince and others slowly come undone. We have saved hundreds of millions of dollars, and I always say it wasn't Rob, it wasn't me, it was a whole team. Guys like Mike Belgran, Vince Crisanti, Giorgio Mammoliti, those are the people that help save each and every one of you hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars each year. Folks, the bad news is, just in less than 3 years, John Tory's increased spending at the city over $1 billion each and every single year.
The roar of disdain when you mention the amount of taxes that people here in this city have paid, and we're real thrilled to have Doug Ford, who, as you just saw, now running for the mayor of Toronto. And Doug, thanks so much for joining us here this morning on RawMikeRichards.com.
Well, thanks for having me in. It's great. Great
to
be here.
And I got to tell you, okay, so in the world of politics, and which even when we were watching football this weekend, you just can't get away from it. But I can briefly, because in talking to my good friend Gino Reda, who I've known for years, and we're having this conversation at TSN, and he said, yeah, like when I was coaching Dougie and Robbie. And I said, who are you talking about? The Fords.
Yeah.
I said, you coached high school? Okay, how old are you, Gino? Are you? How many people?
Gino has an age.
I was going to say, what were you, 10 when you were coaching these guys? Gino Reda was your football coach for you and your brother.
Not only my football coach, but he was a camp counselor. Went to something called Campus Life. And so he was one of the counselors there. Great guy. He never aged.
No, he doesn't.
I think he was my soccer coach as well. So he is a great guy.
Well, part of your family is athletics. I mean, it's always been close to you guys. And, I think sometimes when you play team sports, it allows you, and Dave's the same way as I am, to have a communication with other people, even if they have a difference of opinion. Yeah. I can always say that you can tell someone who's played team sports because of the interaction they have with other people. Sure. So I think before we get into some of the details of just why you're doing this, I think there's also, and I'll let you explain it, this accountability that you have, that you get as an athlete, that if you're going to the field of public service, which this is, there must be something that you derive from playing team sports that sort of drives you to do this.
It's funny you say that. I always relate a lot of things to team sports, be it leadership, teamwork, how to work with others, having a plan, moving forward, how to win. So I always relate it to team sports, and that's the same as I run our company. You have to run a company as a team. And you have to run a city as a team, and your team is the constituents of Toronto.
So in making this decision, it's not something that you would have done overnight, but just explain the process of coming to this conclusion. How long did it take, and when did you really say to yourself, before anybody else, I'm going to do this?
Well, probably the time was I was up at Sault Ste. Marie with Patrick Brown and a couple of people from the party in a by-election, and we're happy to say we won that by-election, first time in, I think it was 30 years up there. And I got off and I saw a poll, even though a lot of polls are fake polls. It piqued my interest that we were neck and neck. And then, sure enough, the same polling companies, this is why I don't trust polling companies, 3 weeks later in the middle of the summer said he was 30 points ahead. So I don't know how things change in 3 weeks in the middle of the
Doug,
summer.
think it's fake news. We all know it's fake news. I mean, that's what you don't want to say.
Well, you know something, you got to question some of their methodologies. And but anyways, I just, my heart's in the city. I understand the city. I understand the budgets inside and out. And there's just a lot of issues right now. And I guess the media hasn't been calling Tory out on a tremendous amount of issues, and the councillors are all singing Kumbaya.
Yeah.
When that happens, hold on to your pocketbooks because they're digging deep into it.
Yeah. So when you look at it, and you're absolutely right when you talk about what's happening in City Hall right now. Why isn't John Tory being called out for this? Why? What was different? Because it almost seemed like when your brother was in power, your brother would say one thing, and all of a sudden people were having debates about it and wondering. And meanwhile, all he did was cut, and actually, save some money for the taxpayers. I mean, he was not joking when he said we're stopping the gravy train. I know people laughed at that, but he wasn't wrong about that.
No,
though.
he was dead serious, and we did stop it in our first year. Our accomplishments just go for 2 pages if it means hundreds of millions of dollars in the labor savings and the labor costs to make sure we had a good deal for the frontline workers, but also the taxpayers, making sure that TTC was an essential service. We outsourced the garbage west of Yonge Street, saving $88 million. We had to make sure that Toronto Community Housing was running properly. We fired the whole board and the president, CEO. There was a lot of games being played with purchase orders. We went into every single department to find efficiencies, which we did. I could just keep going on and on and on. And I ask everyone, and be honest with me, what has John Tory done? No one can answer.
Right.
I can't even answer. And I'm trying not to be biased. And I've known John for 25 years. Nice guy. Don't get me wrong. But he hasn't done anything except raise taxes to a tune of $1 billion. Compared to when we were there. And that works out. Rob used to always say, don't say $1 billion. So that works out to be $1,000 a household that he's spending every single year, more than what we spent. The cupboards are empty. The reserves are drained. He's facing $300 million going into this year of pressure that he doesn't have. So it's concerning to say the least. You look at parking. I'm just going to head down to City Hall after this. So he's jacking up all the parking rates after he got rid of the board. So it's him and a couple of staffers. So the first thing he did was raise it $6 million. The water bills, they're going through the roof. Yeah. You got the garbage going through the roof. Traffic is an absolute disaster. I'm all over the U.S. every single week. Nothing compares to Toronto traffic. It's gridlock absolutely everywhere. He's going to close King Street off, where we are here, to pedestrian. Folks, I just had 2 business owners beside you coming out saying, you got to stop this. It's going to kill our business. He's putting bike lanes, and I'm not against bike lanes because I put $90 million into bike lanes, but not on Bloor Street, not on Yonge Street. Do it east or west or north or south of the main arterial roads.
I think most people would agree with that.
It's just
serious. If you drive, it doesn't seem to be that hard to figure out.
And they're increasing politicians. So we think there should be the same amount of federal MPs and MPPs provincially as there are councillors. Well, it's double the amount now. So they've increased it again by 3 additional councillors. We don't need more politicians. We need less. And you get things done.
We're in conversation with Doug Ford here on ronmkerichards.com. We're pleased that he's joined us here this morning. And, looking at public service these days and just looking at, what's happened south of the border and just sort of what people want and what they don't want. And it was pretty clear that when Donald decides that he's going to run, there was a big part of that, if you even get picky, the majority of the company said, country, that we don't want a politician. We don't want any poly speak. Maybe we go with a businessman with all the character flaws they may have seen, but he's not going to be a politician. this past weekend, where we see sometimes that does catch up with him, you take the good and the bad, and right now it just seems like it's literally unraveling. So for someone to want to be in public service, and I had the same conversation with Tim Hudak and the other guys I've talked to, I said to Dave, why would anyone want to do this? I mean, they go through your garbage. They got cameras in your backyard. Yeah. They don't leave your family alone. They talk to cousins and children and uncles and aunts. Yeah. And after a while, it feel like they're crawling all over me. And I see your announcement while all this is going on. I'm thinking, there must be. Yeah. I mean, does your wife turn to you and say, "Are you kidding me?" Or is it sort of, at some point it's just in your DNA. It's what your family does. It's that drive to serve the public, and sometimes that is the answer. What is it for you?
It is. It's as corny as it may sound, it's about serving the public. It gets entrenched into you when you continue to take 10 to 15 calls every single day. Yeah. Even when I wasn't a politician, everything from immigration to potholes to every issue you could think of. I'm taking the calls. People are frustrated. You walk out there, hundreds of thousands of supporters, not just in Toronto, but in GTA. Get out there. We need your support. You need that voice for the average household. As we say, the little guy that doesn't have a voice unless you donate $1,000 to someone's campaign. They don't return your calls. They don't get back to you because you aren't important. You're the little guy. But going back to Rob, our city's made up of a massive amount of new Canadians, the ethnic community that absolutely love them. And we have that support because they come from other countries, not all of them, but some come from other countries that there's corruption, just like Canada here. There's lots of corruption in government, that's for sure. And all of a sudden they go to this country and they can actually pick up the phone and call the mayor at home. And then the mayor calls you back at midnight, which he used to do. Yeah. It's unheard of. So, but they'd hear their concerns. You'd show up to their door, and they'd have voters for the rest of their lives here.
I look at your family and your relationship with your brother. I have two brothers myself. He's got a brother, and you're always very protective of it. And I looked at sort of the very public battles sometimes that your brother had, and how the news agencies, quite honestly, really seem to relish and get their fork in there. And then he passes, and then they talk about him with this reverence like he was the Pope. And I think that's the kind of thing, that's what bothered me, is that if you're going to back somebody or you're going to be a certain way, just be consistent in the way that you feel. And I always felt like the media with your brother, everybody has battles. His happens to be a little more public than others. But as a brother, how difficult was that for you to watch literally not only how he was being treated, but the battle he was having personally as well, be that public?
Yeah, it was a challenge, but I always stood by Rob, and massive amounts of people stood by him because the guy was honest. He didn't steal money. Politicians are stealing money underneath our noses every day. They make backroom deals with their buddies for tens of millions of dollars. It's happening right now. It's happening right now as we speak at all three levels of government. There's backroom deals worth millions of dollars. Rob didn't do backroom deals. He wouldn't do it. And I can't say that about too many other politicians, municipally, provincially, or federally. I've been in this game for 30 years. I've seen some real nasty stuff happen. And unless you physically catch them with the paper bag and the money inside it, it's hard to catch these guys. But we caught quite a few of them when we were down there, a lot of them actually.
So election isn't until October of 2018. So you've announced you're going to run, and you kind of have a little bit of a head start rather than last time where you kind of joined it late, which was a significant deficit for you to kind of make up. What's the difference between announcing it now and the deficit you had to actually make up when you replaced Rob and you fell just short, because it was actually pretty damn close? What's gonna be the difference this time around, considering that you actually do have time to game plan instead?
Yeah, last time it was kind of literally last minute. Just to go back, they thought this was a big plan. It wasn't. It was 2 hours before the deadline that you could either drop out or go in. And Rob's doctor at Mount Sinai came in and said, it's just not going to happen. You can't run. It's not feasible. Rob turned to me and said, "Are you going to run?" That's what happened. I didn't even have, guys, I didn't even have the $200 to sign up on me. I raced in the car, went downtown. I think I borrowed it off John Nunziata or Rob, or it was just a blur of things. And then we jumped in there and left us 5.5 weeks. So really had 4 weeks to actually get the signs, get the literature, get campaigning, and we had the momentum. And this time it's a lot longer. We're going to have time to organize the best team ever. We're compiling the best team I've ever worked on in 30 years of politics. People are coming out of the woodworks, so that tells me there's a lot of interest. And it's going to be a challenge. The easy thing I could have done is run provincially, get elected, be a minister, and that's it. But
Disappear into the woodwork.
Disappear into the woodworks. That's I'm not cut from that cloth. I'd rather be down there leading.
So these are all the pros, and I understand that certainly from where you come from. What are the cons? What will be the negative in this?
Well, the cons. I'll go back to what are some of the cons. It's unprecedented in any politician. They flew down to Florida, harassed all the people in our condos, waited outside after they were asked to leave. The Toronto Star follows my mother around. Used to follow Rob and I around everywhere we went. Staked our place out in New Jersey. Our business went through our business. Stood outside Chicago's facility. Stand outside our office. Every move that you made,
wow,
they were following you, and it became, almost became a joke at one point. You go up to their window and say, "Hey, I'm going here. You might as well meet me over there." So it was ridiculous, and it all came down to making sure that, when you take the special interest hands out of the cookie jar, and you're taking money out of their pockets, they get ticked. Oh my God, you're taking, grants and all sorts of nonsense off them. Not good grants. There are good grants, but some grants were just, muffin making grants, and people weren't for that.
So you're aware. I mean, obviously, making the announcement the other day that your family's prepared that some of this crap could happen again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they used to write my 83-year-old mom the nastiest letters you've ever heard, and the language was unbearable. You have death threats. 2 guys got arrested saying they're going to sodomize my daughters and all this crazy stuff, stuff you've never heard before, and you'd like to get your hands around.
Yeah, because they'd never say it to your face, Doug. That.
They're all tough guys behind Twitter or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but they grew up with it. Our family grew up with it, ready to do battle for the taxpayers. And my other brother thinks I'm crazy, and he's probably right getting involved. But I used to think Rob and I were both crazy getting involved in politics. But it's something that people need to be heard.
So going into the election that you'll soon turn the calendar year, what do you think is the number one issue that the people of Toronto are coming up to you and saying, Doug, this is my number one concern with this city right now?
Yeah, before I never had a record to chase after with John Tory. Now he has a record of just constant broken promises, raising taxes. He said he was going to outsource the garbage. He never outsourced the garbage. These are the things that we live in a democracy. People vote based on what you promise them. He said he wasn't going to do tolls. Then he flip-flopped on the tolls again. I think that's his third time going back and forth on the tolls. He said he was going to keep taxes low. He hasn't. He's taxed everything that moves, including the parking now. So these are some of the frustrations people have out on the street. Every time they reach their hand in their pocket, it's either Kathleen Wynne gouging them on the Ontario, the hydro bills. It's Justin Trudeau going after every small business out there with additional taxes. Or it's John Tory taxing everything, including the roof that you have. He's going to tax the amount of rainwater that comes off the roof.
The rainwater?
Roof tax. Look into roof tax and you'll see it. And
that's news to me. It almost sounds impossible.
Ridiculous. Yeah, but they're doing it. There's the runoff of the water, so they're going to measure the amount of water that runs off your roof. That's on the table. But there's nothing that he's done to save money or find efficiencies. He's hired a couple thousand staff, bureaucrats, and I'm thinking, why? Why do you need so many bureaucrats? You don't need them. It's just it takes 34 houses to pay for one bureaucrat. You hire a couple thousand. That's like hiring a GM plant or a Ford plant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's staggering, absolutely staggering.
Travel in this city, and both of us travel into the downtown area because we live just out east. It's getting more difficult by the day. Yeah. Are you happy with the plan that's in place for TTC to I guess open up the Scarborough area and improve. I know they're talking about redoing the Gardner a little bit. Do you like what's happening there?
It was a disaster. Even coming down here, I couldn't get off. I had to go all the way down to the far end, circle back around, and come back. This smart track is still on the back of a napkin that he did during the campaign. He said it was going to be 7 years, 22 stops. Nothing's been done. Nothing at all. He's screwed over the people of Scarborough once again. We had a fully funded Scarborough subway. 3 stops. Provincial approved it and gave us the money. Feds and the municipality did. And he came in and took out 2 of the stops and increased it to a $5 billion one subway stop. It's ridiculous. The people of Scarborough, there's 26% of the population, 630,000 people, and they're just getting screwed on transit. You go out to the zoo or anything, it prohibits them of good gainful employment. I mean, you can get it. It takes you 2 hours to get there, to get downtown, and then 2 hours to get back home. But let's start delivering subways. Any major city, guys, anywhere you go in the world, is rapid underground transit. Build 1 kilometer a year. Build 2 kilometers a year. Anything. Because our city's going up. We got to go down. We got to go under.
Well, Doug, thanks so much for spending this time with us here today. I was saying before you came in, I said, well, when Tim Hudak came in that one time, I don't know how many people there, and 20, 30 people, all these handlers, there was PR girls, there's all kind of stuff. Doug, I just see this man, and it's funny, my mom's side is all from Hamilton. They're all self-made men. And I said, oh my God, you look like exactly
what.
There's a lot
of support in Hamilton.
Just here he comes walking in himself. How you doing, fella? Sitting down. I said, I like that. And look, I certainly respect what your family has done. And I said, I thought it was very painful what Rob went through. He was on a show doing CFL picks.
He loved it. Yeah. That was his favorite show going. I remember he'd be picking it. He loved football. I thought of him last night.
He was pretty good too.
Last night. I was watching the game last night. Jeez, Washington really kicked their butts.
Yeah, they did. That wasn't even close.
It wasn't even close. And I thought Oakland was going to have a lot stronger offense than what they had.
Wait, what did you play? Do you play on both sides of the ball? What did you do?
Believe it or not looking at me now, but I used to be fullback and then moved me up when in the senior year up to line but we had a great team.
Well, and
won a couple championships.
It's funny. I remember when the counselors were picking on Rob because at some point he was on the football field, having coached high school football myself. 4 o'clock. That's what you're doing, and they'd made some issue about him going out to do it. And I thought, guys, you're missing the point of this. Yeah. Here's a man that most mayors, I think, at some point aren't really probably going to go back out to where they came from to free of their own time, go out and make young men into better people. Yeah. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, he's not getting paid for this. This is not a publicity stunt. He would have done it whether he was mayor or not. And I think this is what you're for counselors, and I don't know what goes on. Look, not that I know what goes on in Toronto Council or any other council, but all I know, if the mayor of Toronto said, by the way, there are some days where I will be gone by 3:30, 3 o'clock, whatever, because I'm going to coach high school football. And they made a stink about that, and I thought this is wrong. And I felt that all of a sudden, they're calling him Tommy Boy. I'm thinking, you want to call him Tommy Boy, okay? But here's what you're missing on that. Tommy Boy in the movie was loved. Tommy Boy was the hero in that. Yeah. Tommy Boy was the one who was so honest. He got himself in trouble, but at the end of the day, he had the support of the people. So if you want to call him Tommy Boy, call him Tommy Boy then, because I didn't think that was a terrible thing necessarily. I know what they were getting at, but guess what? I think they were wrong because the people of Toronto, at the end of the day, as I said during his funeral, and just a quick little background, when he was diagnosed with cancer, that happened about the same that I was, with rectal cancer. Well, and it's gone. I mean, I was one of the lucky ones. I'm one of the lucky ones. And I thought, the thing they made about it, when he was doing his chemo, I was doing my chemo, except no one knew about mine. Yeah. I was going through my chemo and radiation every hour on the hour.
You didn't put your medical records out there?
Apparently not.
No, apparently not. No.
And that's what. And I said, that's when I looked at it, I said, come on, let's show a little dignity for the guy at least. Yeah.
But Rob, it wasn't about football. It was about helping these kids. And if you met these kids, you'd see over 20 years, a generation of kids that went through his program, loved him. High priority neighborhoods. These kids had tough lives. And at another date, I'll tell you some stories. We'll come back on and tell you about his football career.
That's awesome.
Hey, well, the fact that you came down here, Doug, means a lot to us. Certainly, we're a small business. Yeah. I mean, we're going up against the big guys, and we kind of like where this is going. Yeah. And this is a huge help, you doing this today.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Doug. That is Doug Ford. And you know what? I'll take this up before you leave. It being a small it means if you get up, we lose a camera. That's what that means. We all of a sudden we won't be able to see ourselves.
Become best friends. Yep.
I look forward to
You want to go do karate in the
what will be a
garage?
very interesting, I'm sure, series of debates as well. You doing that?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to see that.
I'd do it out on the street.
Yeah,
right now.
I know you would. That'd be great. Hey, thanks so much for joining us here on RawMikeRichards.com. Subscribe. Yep.
Yeah, Clark Judge tomorrow. We're talking NFL, wrap up of the Monday night, Dallas and Arizona.
And possibly Will Strickland, our buddy Will, might come in and talk about the dissension south of the border, to kneel or not to kneel, but just basically the state of the United States. Being born and raised in New York, played his college ball in Houston, and as a semi-activist, I think he'll be the perfect guy to have tomorrow if we can get him. Once again, RawMikeRichards.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Doug Ford, awesome having him in studio today. Have yourself a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.